The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Where the black American is concerned. So my contention is that whenever a people come to the conclusion that the government which they have supported proves itself unwilling or proves itself unable to protect our lives and protect our property because we have the wrong color skin. We are not human beings unless we ourselves band together and do whatever, however, whenever is necessary to see that our lives and our property is protected. And I doubt that any person in here would refuse to do the same thing were he in the same position, or I should say were he in the same condition.
Mr. Harper, the coronavirus has spread across the globe. More people have died in the United States than anywhere else. And guess what? That snake in the grass, Donald Trump, has no answer. Welcome to Melanated Politics. I'm Eric Clark.
And I'm David Harper. Good to be back.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate that. Yes, it's been a long time. Absolutely. So, Mr. Harper, how have you been, my brother?
Been good.
How's everything been on your side of town?
Everything's been copacetic. Everything's been cool with family and everything. Like I said, it's good to be back. Good to be here at Morris Media Studios. Good to see the poetess in there, looking very stylish in her Corona gear. Believe me, she's still making it work. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you as well. Also, shout out to the P. Shout out to Penis. Shout out to Sheena Lester, right? Pardon me. Shout out to Sheena Lester, and also shout out, before we get started, shout out to Sheena Lester, and also shout out to Miss Poetess. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Now, President Trump obviously has been more concerned about money and power than the loss of American life. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
I think first, snake in the grass is too good for him. That's number one. I think that right now, looking at his response to Corona and his response to just human life is just it's sad, man. To use a Hillary word, this is the time to use deplorable. It's deplorable.
Absolutely.
So right now, she said it back in 2015, 2016, deplorable. This is deplorable right now. So it is what it is.
We've been talking about the primary races throughout the shows, a few shows we've done prior to the coronavirus. Obviously, former Vice President to President Barack Obama has basically clinched the nomination. He will be running against Donald Trump in November. Why do you think he won so easy? Were you expecting that? Did you expect more Bernie supporters to come out, or what?
I think Joe Biden. I had a feeling he was gonna pull it off. I have a nephew and some good friends who are strong Bernie supporters, Bernie crats, they like to call them. And, we'll definitely get more into that later in the show, kind of doing a deep dive. But I really see how black voters tilted the primary election hard to Joe Biden. And I don't think it can be ignored, but I also think that, especially as we talked about before with Corona, everything that's going on right now in the black community with not just black voters, but black people in general, being under the situation we're in and how the whole coronavirus, COVID-19 is affecting us. I think that we have to be in tune and not just ask, but demand some equity.
Okay.
So,
yeah. And do you think the coronavirus will affect the election as far as Donald Trump's denial of how widespread it could have become, the information he received?
I don't think there's anyone who's objective with common sense that looks at Donald Trump and the way he's handled COVID-19 and can say that he's competent. You can't say he's a competent individual. You can't put competent or next to his name. You can't do it. he's a lot of things, but incompetent is maybe the biggest thing, because President Barack Obama and his administration left a warning for him about a pandemic. And okay, fine. Let's say you ignore Barack Obama.
Are you referring to
I'm talking about Donald Trump.
Okay.
Ignoring, because in 2016, during the transition, Barack Obama and his team said, hey, there's a pandemic coming. Actually, in 2014 or 2015, I think Barack Obama did a speech talking about, hey, we have to be prepared for a pandemic, this, that, and the third. But Donald Trump, he has an aversion to black people. He likes them in a particular way. He loves black women in certain ways. He likes his black friends or whatever.
There's my African American.
There's my African American. He's great with the African American. But when it comes to taking in information from black folks, when it comes to just like, hey, this is what you need to do. He's just we do something to him. That's why he can't stand Kaepernick. That's why he can't stand Barack Obama. It might be a light-skinned black thing too, just to let you know. It might be a combination of both, because I haven't seen him.
He doesn't like Steph Curry.
He don't like Steph. It's a yellow black thing, black thing. It's a yellow black thing, light skin thing. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. That's what it is. But bottom line, all jokes aside, it's dangerous with him being as president, because it was warning signs. And what I was going to say before is that he, being Donald Trump, ignored what Obama put in, and then fired his own people, or fired people that were left, that said, hey, we got to do something. You know what I mean? So well, we'll have a chance to break it down.
We'll break it down a little bit later in the show.
Yeah.
But before we discuss all of that, and we break all of that down, because we definitely have to dive right into that and also peel the scab off. But basically, how has the coronavirus affected the black community? That's a very good question that we pose.
It's damaging doesn't fit the word as the impact of COVID-19 to the black community.
Okay.
It's by far disproportionately affected the lives of not just older seniors in our community by taking their lives. I mean, with previous conditions, whether it's diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever it may be. But for younger black folks in our community, they've been ill by it too. So the living conditions that we live in, whether you have asthma, whether you don't have good or healthy grocery stores in your neighborhood, all that affects us disproportionately in a higher rate when it comes to COVID, because we're not at our best to fight something like this.
And you know what else? Also, the COVID-19 exposed the quality of life for every American prior to the COVID-19 outbreak.
Yeah.
So, but let's take a look at the facts.
Right, we just had a little technical difficulties there. That's all.
The quality of life that every American had prior to the COVID-19 is very important. I mean, as far as the risk factors,
right?
Coronary artery disease.
As coronavirus tears an unforgiving path across the country, numbers show it is especially devastating to one group, African Americans.
When you look at the proportion of people who get into serious trouble and die, again, it's going to be disproportionate towards the African Americans. I do expect that.
Why is the black community getting hit so hard by this?
Well, the black community has been hit by poor health for a long time. Pre-existing conditions such as obesity, such as asthma, such as diabetes, hypertension. Now you compound it by this deadly disease. I mean, it's no surprise that we're going to get hit harder.
In Chicago, nearly 70% of virus-related fatalities are black, even though African Americans make up less than a third of the population.
Those numbers take your breath away.
In the epicenter, New York City, 59% of deaths are in Queens and the Bronx, both areas with high Black and Hispanic populations.
We're working very hard on the African American community with respect to what's going on because it's not good. I don't like it.
Down south in Louisiana, African Americans, who only account for 32% of the population, make up 70% of the state's deaths.
Those hotspots are in areas of the state that have a disproportionate number of African Americans living there.
Not every state reports cases with a breakdown by race. The White House task force says the federal government is now collecting that data.
It will be public as soon as you get enough data to be able to make a meaningful statement.
Doctors on the front lines see those numbers play out firsthand.
You pass through door after door after door where a patient is fighting for their life on the other side, and almost every single one of them is Black.
Especially hard in smaller communities like Albany, Georgia. In a county nearly 70% African American, it has more deaths than anywhere in the state. Terica Parks is a survivor.
I was wrapped in a blanket. I'm laying there gasping for air, and all I'm thinking is, I don't think I'm going to make it.
People are scared. We're scared. We've never seen anything like this before.
We're living in a time right now where we've never seen anything like this. As you just saw, the young queen, the young lady right there, that just, I mean, wow.
It hits your heart because you realize you saw an image of a senior on a stretcher, but you also saw that young, like you said, that young queen talking about how she wasn't sure she was going to make it. And I think right now, as a people, as a community, we're going to have to like protect ourselves in ways that we never thought we had to protect ourselves. And some things we have to have each other's backs basically in ways that we haven't seen since generations, since back in the civil rights movement, maybe even further back to Jim Crow or fighting against slavery. I mean, it's the type of conditions that we're seeing COVID take our community. It hits us so hard that, and I know we haven't jumped to this topic as far as them reopening different states opening early, but as soon as the report came out that it was affecting African Americans more, Black folks more.
Yes, sir.
That's really when you saw like, well, open everything up. And, it's, look, I'm not being cynical. I'm just being objective here. I feel that, I know that Black lives and Black people, in a lot of ways, we're afterthought when it comes to, we're a people, a community that's used to taking on so much. And I know that we're tired of being hit so hard, but the response to it is also a reminder that ain't nobody gonna care about us unless we care about us.
Well, I'm very confident that, as you said, as a people, we will elevate our consciousness with respect to our own personal health, whether that be exercising more, eating more fiber, drinking more H2O, engaging in a lot of different physical activities, just different things that replenish your soul and your spirit to where your things that we can control are things that we actually have a grasp of. Unfortunately, when things like this happen, it always affects the poor and the so-called minorities more and to a higher degree. And that's something that we are experiencing right now. I mean, if you don't have a lot of money and your health care, all you have is Obamacare, or maybe not even that, or just maybe a part-time job and you're paying, they take the money out of your check with respect to your health care so you can maintain your health care status via your employment. Sometimes that's not enough. So we already have a broken health care system. A lot of people, primarily African Americans, do not have adequate, substantial health care. And now we see that as a result of this dreaded coronavirus, it is affecting melanated people more in this country and beyond. also looking beyond America regarding this coronavirus. There's a lot of people that look like you and I, brother. They don't have 6 feet social distancing. So shout out to all the brothers and sisters that are in refugee camps, okay, that are in homeless embankments and facilities. Shout out to all the people that are watching Melanated Politics that are sleeping in a tent. And you may not be able to engage yourself in 6 feet social distancing. So shout out to all of those individuals, because we'll see what happens. We'll see what the government, how responsible they will, the lack of responsibility that the government shows with this Trump administration. Obviously, we all pay attention to this stuff. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the Biden. We'll see if he gets a woman in there. We'll talk about that later. We'll see if he holds the Trump administration accountable for what has happened and how he did not get on board. He dropped the ball at the beginning, as we said earlier in the show.
That's a good question. Is negligence?
If this was a court case, I don't mean. Yeah. If this was a court case, guilty of negligence.
I mean, seriously. I mean, because
if you look at the evidence,
I don't know if it's going to happen, but I just wondered if you could bring up a case on, because this is not like it's not necessarily like how Katrina came in and Hurricane Katrina came in and they told everybody to leave and this, that, and the third. This was something that they saw coming beforehand, and instead of saying, "Hey, people, leave," he's like, "Hey, people, we got it."
Mr. Harper, was this when President Obama and his administration had something set up, as you expressed earlier? Was it just something else? Was it just it had President Obama's name on it? So let's go ahead and dismantle that, like pretty much everything else.
Like everything else, basically
Obama.
Basically, President Obama had to deal with it was.
I mean, as far as the negligence.
Oh, the negligence.
As far as, had he not a better question? I'm sorry. Had he not dismantled everything that President Obama had set up regarding pandemics and how to deal with these, how to get an early start, how to communicate with other nations, et cetera, et cetera.
Ebola. That's why I couldn't think of it. Ebola. When that after Ebola, because everybody was like, Ebola, 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 Ebola. President Obama, Ebola. It was President Obama. It's like he wasn't Obama. It was President
Trump
Ebola.
said he had Ebola.
Right.
And SARS.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe there was only one death from Ebola in the U.S. as far as I think I'm not exactly sure. Please don't quote me on that. But from Ebola and really beforehand, President Obama had a pandemic task force. He made a speech on it, and Trump just said anything, like you said, anything Obama.
But, and
he I'm really not, does not like light skin.
And I don't mean to be insensitive when I make those comments. But when we look at U.S. state TV, it's Fox News, and all the rhetoric that they've been peddling regarding Donald Trump's administration, as a matter of fact, they're contemplating not even holding press briefings anymore. He's went out there and said if you light the inside of your body up and put some disinfectant inside your body through the skin, or if you get it injected, and then different medical associations, the top medical associations in America, disagree with this guy and put the information out there. So now they're pretty much in limbo if they even want this guy to go out there and even hold a press conference.
This is the sad part about
it. They might as well get some yellow tape and tape off the press conference room.
This is the saddest, absolutely. The saddest thing.
If you continue to spread that type of rhetoric, that's obviously proven lies.
The sad thing about what you said is the pure fact that there was different emergency rooms that were getting phone calls because people were like basically taking, cleaning products, thinking that was going to help them with corona. There was a spike in 911.
There was a spike in internet activity to search those products people were calling their local officials.
And
words are very
this
powerful.
wasn't nationwide, just certain areas, certain states. And I bottom line is like, it's not like, let me stop saying that. Bottom line is that he's not fit to be the president of the United States. He's not fit to be leading anything. And this COVID-19 puts this election at a life or death situation. This is a life or death. Literal. It's not hyperbole. It's real. It's life or death. If he would have hopped on it, earlier, it'd be less people dying.
Yes.
If he, who knows how many people would have died if he would have got on it earlier. If he would have, because realizing the first cases, they're realizing now the first cases was like really December, January. You know?
But don't take my word for it. Let's not take your word for it. Let's take Trump's word for it.
Having to do, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat.
Because of all we've done, the risk to the American people remains very low. People die from the flu, and this is very unusual. And it is a little bit different, but in some ways it's easier, and in some ways it's a little bit tougher. But we have it so well under control. I mean, view this the same as the flu. When somebody sneezes, I try and bail out as much as possible. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. And from our shores, it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. Nobody really knows. The fact is, the greatest experts, I've spoken to them all, nobody really knows.
We're ordering a lot of supplies. We're ordering a lot of elements that, frankly, we wouldn't be ordering unless it was something like this. But we're ordering a lot of different elements of medical. Now the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. And this is their new hoax.
If you're healthy, you will probably go through a process and you'll be fine.
You take a solid flu vaccine, you don't think that would have an impact or much of an impact on corona?
No, he's asking the question, when is it going to be deployable? And that is going to be at the earliest a year to a year and a half, no matter how fast you go.
You think that's right?
And as you said, treatment's going to be available before the vaccine.
Well, I think treatment in many ways might be more exciting.
If, we have thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that get better just by, sitting around and even going to work, some of them go to work, but they get better.
If we put Donald Trump's brain in a bird, it would start flying backwards.
I don't know if it would fly backwards. I think it would hit a tree. I think if Donald Trump's brain was in a bird, it would try to swim. I think if Donald Trump's brain was in the bird, it would try to use one of his wings and get down on his two legs and try to run like a dog. This is not this. You know what? We during the break, just let y'all know. During the break, we were joking and laughing. Not joking and laughing, but we couldn't believe what he was saying. When you look all the clips together, you're just like, this is real.
It feels like you're living in a movie.
Watching a bad movie.
I watch the science fiction channel.
Sometimes. What's the actor from Airplane?
I don't know, but that was more Sharknado.
Sharknado? I know Airplane. I'm saying my age. Most people know Soul Plane. I
forgot who
but
that
bottom
particular
line,
actor was.
Bottom line, this is not anything to laugh at.
This is not a game.
It's not a game. People are dying. And he's saying it's going to go away, or flu shot, or. Listen, I know there's so many people in our community that are cynical when it comes to politics, that are cynical when it comes to voting, when it's cynical because they believe like they put in who they want to put in, this, that, and the third. I guarantee you, if there's somebody pulling the strings right now, they didn't want him because he's more than anything, he's messed up the money. There's no win I'll give you an example. If for all the, I'm going on this tangent here. I'm sorry, but for all those conspiracy theorists, that's like, of course they wanted George Bush in because they wanted the towers go down, and they wanted war in Iraq, and they wanted oil. That's money. That's contracts. This, that, and the other. There's no money grab here. There's no getting the bag at all. There's no bag to be found in this stupidity. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So if you're cynical, if you believe like voting doesn't matter, why should I vote? It doesn't matter. This, that, and the third. When you have a man in the White House named Donald Trump that's saying this will go away, that's saying cleaning products, that's saying, it's
a conspiracy by the Democrats.
It's a conspiracy by the Democrats, whatever. Just, if you care about your well-being, register to vote. Just register to vote. And this is not about all your problems going away. This is not about voting for the lesser of two evils. This is about you having a better chance of living. I'm going to make that simple. As an individual, if you care about living, just living, waking up in the morning, then register to vote. Because the reason why we mentioned President Obama and Ebola and different pandemics, we're a global society. This is a global world. It's a global industry. There's different things that come across. There's viruses. There's pandemics. There's 1,000,001 health-related threats. But having someone at the top that at least says, you know what? I don't know what these threats are, but I'm gonna let the people that know what they're doing handle it. I'm not gonna fire them. I'm not gonna let people go.
That's like asking a cat to start barking.
Speaking of asking a cat to start barking, Dr. Fauci, the doctor up there with the glasses on.
Yes.
There was some person on Twitter.
Did you see the interview with Laura Ingraham?
I didn't. I tried.
Anyway, he had to check.
I heard about that.
He had to check her.
There was a person that tweeted "Fire Fauci," and President Trump liked the tweet. So you're liking the tweet of the smartest person being fired on your team. You're liking the tweet of the smartest person being fired on your team. That's like saying, "Hey, Phil Jackson liked the tweet saying we should cut Michael Jordan." That's a sports analogy. I'm trying to make it simple for folks. That's how real this is. It's not even, you heard us talk politics to our blue in the face. This is about life and death.
Even after the Berlin Conference, when African nations were split up and African nations were colonized, and you had different movements, and you had different freedom fighters, and you had brothers like Stephen Biko and Patrice Lumumba, and you had different countries like Algeria and different countries like that. One thing that our dear brother Malcolm talks about, one of the ways, not the only way, one of the ways that our brothers and sisters of the African nations obtained their freedom was actually through a word that starts with V. It's called voting. So that's also something to look at there as far as the big picture.
Big picture.
I still believe Donald Trump will be reelected. I think there's still so many people that believe in this man, that support this man. I think that they believe he's the second coming of Jesus. Okay, he has all the evangelical support. Okay, he has all these protesters. Okay, they money and take away guys like Donald Trump, his golfing buddies, all the industries, all the corporations, all the guys that he backs, all the guys that back him, all the guys that have all their money intertwined and put together. When he made that promise that I'm going to make sure you keep your money and we'll keep rich people rich, poor people poor, cut out the unions, cut out the middle class, he has kept his promise to those that believe in him. Now, another reason why I personally believe that he will be reelected, because Republicans are going to go out there and vote. Now, what we know that elderly elderly black folk will go out there and vote. Well, young people go out there and vote. Well, the people that were bitter about Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, will they go out there and vote? Will they pull a Hillary move? Oh, no, I don't like Hillary, so no, I won't. I'll just sit out of it. And then Trump gets in there. Even some of the Hillary supporters and Bernie supporters last time even crossed over to the Trump team. Okay. 53 to 55% of white women voted for Donald Trump after the access.
Hollywood.
Pardon me. After that particular interview.
He can grab a
as far as Trump supporters, it's their loyalty goes beyond question, and it goes without saying. And as far as Trump's protests, the protesters actually had their guns, they had their ammunition, they were out there, they were blocking traffic, et cetera, et cetera. You saw that.
I saw that, yeah.
What do you think about that?
This is one thing, if you're going to take anything positive out of a negative with this COVID-19 situation with coronavirus, is that watching the protesters go against their governors, saying reopening the state, and this has been even happening here in California. A small percentage, not as big as Michigan or other states, but long story short, seeing that type of fraction lets me understand that on a larger level why we had a civil war, and why the mentality of so many people are just different. And when I say different, I'm being kind. You have people out there that said on TV, people gonna die. Open up the government. People gonna die, open up the government. So the
mayor of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Mayor of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Who doesn't call any shots on the Las Vegas Strip. It's actually the commissioner.
Right.
So she's way out of bounds and way out of pocket.
Or the
Trump supporter.
Or the governor of Georgia.
See how this works?
Yes. Or the governor.
You see how this works?
I totally see how this works. But going to your last statement about Trump supporters and people voting for him and this, that, and the third, I think that every state is going to be its own battle. Every state is going to be its own battle. But I think it's going to be so much harder for him.
Politically speaking, the Trump supporters and the Republicans are playing chess.
No.
Democrats are playing caroms. I didn't say check. I said caroms.
Can you explain what caroms? I'm not
familiar. You're not familiar with caroms. Not from Los Angeles.
I'm not from LA. I'm just being honest. I'm not from LA. You got to tell me what caroms are. You got to see. I wasn't going to be like, I know. I'm not that brother. I'm going to let you know. I don't know.
A lot of neighborhoods, not to feel, a lot of neighborhoods, Compton, Watts, Los Angeles, Inglewood, et cetera, we have a lot of recreational parks.
Yeah.
We all grew up around, and we would go there, play ball, whatever. And a lot of times they had carom boards. It's a wooden stick and little small wooden pieces that resemble checkers, but they're smaller. But anyway, caroms.
All right.
I say that because
after COVID, we got to play caroms.
I say that because this is a cultural war. This is past voting. This is about who represents the highest population in the United States, not now, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years. Trump just an executive order to stop immigration right now. Right now.
Okay.
It's a cultural war with Donald Trump and his supporters. They don't look at it like it's just laws or it's just pro-life and small government and the death penalty. It's a cultural war. These too many Mexicans are coming over here. These Muslims, you can't come, and pretty much the black folks without money, we don't even need you anymore. So that's one of the reasons why they will get. Don't take my word for it. It's out there. That's one of the grandest, most awesome things about living in an information highway society. All this stuff is out there.
And this is where I agree with you, but I'm not going to say disagree, but because you're right on so many points, but I'll say I look at it from a different perspective.
Yes, sir.
You're 1,000% right. It's a cultural war. It's been a cultural war for forever. As far as America and white America of a certain ilk, I'm not putting all white Americans in this boat, but white Americans in a certain ilk that look at this country a particular way and voted for him because they want to go back to that way where they were elevated.
And that's what makes us such a wonderful people, my brother, because I just hope and pray that one day they don't look at us all the same when they putting us over. Go ahead.
But the part...
Or getting on the elevator, being a human being while black. Go ahead.
But the part where I look at it a little bit differently, is that I don't think the Republicans... I think the Republicans are supporting them. I'm talking about senators and Congress people. I think there's a good portion of them that are supporting Trump, but a good portion of them are being very cautious in like if you talk to like no one, I haven't heard one Republican say what the governor of Georgia is doing is right. I haven't really even heard one Republican outside of Donald Trump say what the protest.
They won't say it. They'll give him a big fat donation when it's time to be reelected.
No, that's, I guess what I'm trying to say is that they're observing what's going on, not being participants.
Look what happens when you go up against Donald Trump. You
Not
get
the same
Eric
way.
Cantor. As a matter of fact, on Melanated Politics, we like for all these groups and individuals to speak for themselves. So let's take a look at the Trump protesters.
About having to do, a lot of people think that goes away.
There's no pandemic. Media is the cancer.
People are going to die. They die no matter what.
I need a haircut. Yes. It's great.
For heaven's sake, open the barber shops. Open the hair salons. We need haircuts, okay? We got to buy food. We got to go to work. We got to provide for our families.
When it comes to the pandemic, are you scared at all? Do you believe in it?
Yes,
I believe
we
it's
sure
real.
do. Exactly, it is real.
We still have a right, I think, to work.
And we have a higher power that we believe in that takes care of us. And I know that it's a real thing. The pandemic is a real thing, and we do believe in that.
It's not
but
fake,
we want to work. We want to work. We don't want a government handout.
Almost none of the street protesters Thursday wore masks or physically distanced, as the CDC recommends.
No, we aren't. We're not scared of this virus.
God bless America.
Where's the circus? It's in that building right now. Where they're pretending that we need a social distance. Where they're pretending we need masks. They should wear the mask.
We are innocent until proven guilty, which means we do not need an immunity certificate. We do not need a test to prove that we're not vectors of disease and out walking around.
We want to open it up so we can make our own health. You don't need to be our deciding factor when we go to the doctor. We can't get to the doctor right now because he got it all clouded up with corona. It's not all about corona, it's about cancer. It's about all these other diseases and all these other illnesses. People being put on hold for surgeries and stuff because you need to open it back up and let us be our own choice, our own voice.
Can I see the back of your vest? This is Bikers for 45. He's the president of the Minnesota chapter.
My point, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. The one thing that, like I said, COVID-19 has shown that, how many people support Donald Trump. They show how many people.
The conspiracy theorists are not voting for Biden or Elizabeth Warren or no one. It's rigged. Okay? Those people are voting for Donald Trump.
those people voting for Donald Trump, yes, but
without a mask,
without a mask on, for sure. But okay, we're gonna talk about state by state how Trump has to win, state by state, and
the battleground states, right?
Well, the states:
Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania,
it's Wisconsin,
Florida,
now Arizona, North Carolina.
Yes, sir, and North Carolina.
You could throw in Michigan. You could definitely throw in. I think we already mentioned Iowa, but and Georgia's going to be fascinating too. And this is where all of this becomes very significant in the presidential election because each state is going through an internal battle. And this is before COVID-19. So for Trump to win against Joe Biden, who won the primary primarily because of black voters, black voters, then, of course, older voters in general, but suburban white women put Joe Biden over the top. And with that said, I think it's not for a love of Joe Biden, it's for a disdain and definitely now a panic with Trump being as president. I think the motivating factors for people to vote is going to be to get him out. That's it. It's to get him out because the word I use, this is his handling of COVID-19 is probably, I'm trying to think of something remotely close to it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think, all jokes aside, what can you remember somebody just messing up something so bad? Something that didn't have to happen the way it is.
Outside of the Indian killer Andrew Jackson, no.
Okay. A decision. Think about it.
He's clearly incompetent, but it's a cultural war, and I hope that he's voted out. Me personally, I hope that he's voted out. I mean, I'm not. Obviously, I'm not. I don't plan on meeting Donald Trump at Starbucks anytime soon.
Not Starbucks. What if I ask you to be the apprentice? What if he starts The Apprentice on Fox News?
I know he's not putting up at Tams or Times to get none of those chili cheese fries with pastrami anytime soon. So
you mentioned Tampa. Florida is another state where you have a lot of seniors all around. They're saying, "Hey, he's messing up. He's effing up too bad. Let's get him out." Right now, the way things are shaping up, I'm not saying it's a shoo-in for Joe Biden by all means. I'm not saying. What I'm trying to say is just the climate right now with COVID and what's been happening in our country and around the world. People aren't happy about that, and they're not going to. I don't think there's going to be people sitting down like looking at the press conference. They look at the press conference.
Yeah, and also, I wanted to discuss with our audience and as well as with you, my brother, what does Joe Biden actually have to do to actually defeat Donald Trump? Because a lot of times we talk about everything that Donald Trump has done and is continuing to engage himself in to maintain his base, maintain his Fox News state television channel, et cetera, et cetera. So with all of that being said, putting that to the side just momentarily, what does the former Vice President Joe Biden, I guess you could even say on a more positive note, what does he have to do, just bottom line, to get the necessary votes, popular votes and otherwise, to actually take this guy out, considering the redistricting, the gerrymandering, and all the games that they play, especially in places like North Carolina. I like to hear Dr. Barber talk about that.
Yeah, North Carolina is
Reverend
Dr. Barber, who's incredible in North Carolina. He's for the people, I think, workers' movement in North Carolina. Let's start with North Carolina. Actually, the Supreme Court basically ruled on a case where they had to stop the gerrymandering, which ended up giving North Carolina the House, I believe, to Democrats. North Carolina is a state where, it was moving to Democrats because of large black population.
Yeah. Let's take this phone call real quick.
All right.
Thank you for calling in to Melanated Politics.
Hello, Eric and David. This is Kevin. How you doing this morning?
Hey.
Doing well, Kevin. Good to hear from you.
Hello
Good.
there.
Hope you brothers are doing well and staying safe out here.
Thank you all as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was listening to the commentary, and as usual, it's insightful. It seems like the main issues of concern in the black community should be the disproportionate way we are affected by the coronavirus. And I think one of the things that we could build from this is that the medical health care disparities that exist that are structural in the black community are making us more vulnerable to this than the population as a whole. And I think this should be a cry for a black health care initiative to be confined within Joe Biden's election possibilities or outcomes, whereas there should be some type of health infrastructure put in place for black health care in America. And I think it should consist of local black medical authorities moving up to state and government levels, leading to the Congressional Black Caucus, which leads to policy initiatives. Now, I know with Joe Biden, one of the things he'll probably embrace will be some of Bernie Sanders' ideas for health care for all, but I think it'll be done within the confines of expanding Obamacare. And I think this is a call for a new initiative to really specifically address black health care in America. That seems to be the pertinent issue of concern in the way I see things going right now.
Dr. Harris, will Joe Biden pick either Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris, bottom line, as a running mate, as his vice president?
That's a good question. I would say, for the most part, he'll probably pick Kamala based on her exposure, but in terms of policy knowledge and articulation, I think Stacey Abrams would be more of a better pick from an operational standpoint.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
I agree with that opinion. I couldn't agree more. I think kind of using a Bernie Sanders term, I think Kamala is more on the establishment side, and I don't think she will get people as motivated as Stacey because she's after her Georgia governor run. She stayed engaged with the community. She stayed engaged with voters. She stayed engaged with the fight, and particularly when it came to voting rights. And one of the things that was on her platform was health care, not just in the inner part of Georgia, outside of Atlanta or in Atlanta, but also in the rural areas. Areas. She talked about that a great deal because Georgia is one of those states, Atlanta is a metropolitan, a huge metropolitan area, a metropolis, and you have surrounding cities outside like Albany and whatnot, but you have a lot of rural areas. So I think you got Macon, Georgia as well. So I think Stacey Abrams would be the smart choice. I know she doesn't have the gamesmanship necessarily like Kamala. She doesn't have the money people like Kamala. She doesn't, and just be frank, I think Kamala, she fits more the mold of what I'm just going to say what some white folks are more comfortable with. Whereas Stacey is, she assists is gonna fight. I'm not saying Kamala won't. I've seen Kamala like really emasculate when she was doing the Supreme Court questioning with what's the the guy that was on the Supreme Court that raped
Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah. Forgive me. I forgot about Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
The way she went at Brett Kavanaugh was dope. It was amazing. And I think Kamala is great with that. But when it comes to policy and really going into heartfelt initiatives that will help our community, as Stacey Abrams. And
one more question before I let you go, brother. Will enough African American voters get out there and vote for VP Joe Biden, so we can go ahead and defeat Donald Trump in November? Will enough of the black electorate come out there and vote for the Democratic ticket, along with whites, Asians, Hispanics, and other Democrats, to go ahead and defeat this guy? Because as you said earlier, as you were watching, these people are very dedicated to Donald Trump. Will there be enough black folk that will come out and vote to take him out?
I think so. And the first I want to address what David said. David, you're right about Kamala and her prosecutorial skills, the way she can get in and fight. But I think Stacey Abrams has a degree of policy articulation and intent that is unmatched by others.
Absolutely.
I think that's her skill. Just to answer that right quick. But yes, Eric, I think there will be, and I think President Obama will be the X factor. I think his endorsement of Biden will be enough to rally a really heavy black vote. And I think the disenchanted Trump followers and those who have looked at his extremism in terms of this coronavirus, addressing the mitigation of this situation, I think that will be enough to sway moderate Trump supporters over, in addition to a heavy black vote and a heavy women's vote in terms of what they didn't get from Hillary. I think that combination of those three should be enough, because if Donald Trump is in any form or fashion elected again, then that just means, like the coronavirus, is just an end state for America, period.
And in closing, since obviously the NFL, NBA, MLB, et cetera, since all these major corporations have closed down, and a lot of people are losing a lot of money, losing jobs, record-breaking unemployment numbers, record-breaking people that are filled out applications for unemployment, just government assistance, et cetera, et cetera. What do you say to those conspiracy theorists, before I let you go, to those that just, it's not real, man. It's not real. What do you say to those before I let you go? Because I have to wrap it up like a Christmas present. What do you say about that?
I say the thing that should be the driver of all our responses, the empirical measurements brought by science and medicine, because you have measurable quantitative evidence of infections and deaths going up on the uprise as a trajectory curve. Until that is subsided, nothing else should really occur or even be a priority, because even if you open up businesses and you continue the infections and the way this disease is going, well, then all business efforts will be temporary, because you're going to do nothing but infect the people who engage in the economy, and it's still going to bring it back to a grinding halt. So you might as well not have a temporary increase just for the sake of gratification. That's going to lead to a grinding halt, and even more so the second time. So I would say let medicine and empirical measurements and a development of a vaccination drive any other type of actions that's related to this.
Thanks, Kevin.
Well said.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for calling in. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend, brother.
Thank you.
All right, you do the same. You brothers take care. Fight the good fight.
You too.
All right, peace.
Peace. One thing I also wanted to say real quick, when I mentioned white folks of a certain ilk that support Trump, there are also some black folks of a certain ilk that support Trump.
Exactly. You can't leave the black Trump voter
and Latinos too. He has, it's a smaller percentage, but they're still out there. What Kevin said about Stacey Abrams and about Trump, his chances of being reelected, and what I was trying to piggyback on is each state has a battle. You mentioned North Carolina. North Carolina, the black voters and black population in North Carolina, as well as other places in the South, have been fighting for strength since they have the right to vote. That battle, and you can see it through the HBCUs. Whether you're talking about North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, Johnson C. Smith,
Alcorn,
Alcorn State. You can go Grambling. You go through. Black folks have been building on this for several years, for several generations, to have this type of strength to be close to where we are now. Virginia was, like, I guess you could say, the first Southern state with a high black population to really turn. You could say Maryland to a certain extent, but North Carolina has already is purplish blue. So I think that, and it has a Democratic governor. The Democratic governor won. It split in 2016. They went for Trump for president, but went for this Democratic governor in 16. Arizona has been having these battles for a while. Arizona, the thing that's fascinating about Arizona is that they like their Flakes, the Jeff Flakes, and they like their McCains, but they don't like the extreme Trumpians. So they may go someplace else. In Michigan for the first time in a very long time has a Democratic state house. It went with Whitmer, and it's been fighting back. Wisconsin, Democratic governor again. All this happened in 2018. Wisconsin's going to be a lot tougher, and just like Ohio. But I say all that to say is that his road back is different, and the biggest thing is that Joe Biden. You may say that he doesn't have his cognitive abilities. You may say that he says some off the cuff stuff, but. And you also may say, because we're gonna be honest out here, he does have a sexual assault allegation on him.
And the 3 strikes crime bill.
He has a lot of things there. But you know what? The one thing you can, even though he has 3 strikes crime bill, the one thing you can say that he has that Hillary doesn't have is that he is way more likable. He's a person that people can be like, okay, you know what? I don't mind voting for him.
But I like what you said about the mentality of the less of the two evils. Those are just facts. But would you rather have Trump? I'm pretty sure a lot of people in America are asking that question. Would you rather have Trump than Joe Biden as the next president when we vote for these people in November? But as far as Joe Biden, before we move on, before we wrap it up, Joe Biden has a specific message for all of America. As you said very eloquently, he needs a lot of black folk to continue to vote and support him. So let's check out an ad from Joe Biden.
We know in our bones this election is different. The stakes are higher, the threat more serious. We have to beat Donald Trump. And all the polls agree Joe Biden is the strongest Democrat to do the job. No one is more qualified. For 8 years, President Obama and Vice President Biden were an administration America could be proud of. Our allies could trust and our kids could look up to. Together, they worked to save the American economy, to pass the historic Affordable Care Act, protecting over 100 million Americans with pre-existing conditions. Now, Joe Biden is running for president with a plan for America's future. To build on Obamacare, not scrap it. To make a record investment in America's schools. To lead the world on climate. To rebuild our alliances. Most of all, he'll restore the soul of a nation. Battered by an erratic, vicious, bullying president. Strong, steady, stable leadership. Biden, president.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
In his own words.
I know this show's called Melanated Politics. We're melanated people.
The essence of color.
The essence of color. The founder and of Morris Media, strong brother, has an incredibly strong daughter running the show now. This is about black people understanding how dire and way things are.
Go ahead, brother.
And we put up an ad for Joe Biden. Not because
that wasn't an endorsement. That's just his message.
That's his message.
Yes.
But let me just say this right now. You just saw the videos we showed of Donald Trump. You see the effects of coronavirus to the black community. This election is not a joke. This election isn't something that you can look at and say, it doesn't matter because my vote doesn't matter. Or it doesn't matter because both guys are bad. This is really about people, like I said before, living and dying. And if you feel like we're conspiracy theorists, I mean, not conspiracy theorists, so if you feel like we're part of the system or, somebody's paying us to say, to pull out propaganda, I tell you what, call up somebody that you trust. Call up somebody you trust.
That was funny.
I know, right? Call up somebody you trust and have them ask and talk about Corona and really see how serious it is, real it is.
Let us not just enter into the realm of selfishness to where we only react and take it serious when it happens to us or someone that we love or care about personally. Because we all share our communities together. And when they write the history books, we all will be on the same pages because we were here together. The coronavirus is something that nations only see so many years, after so many years, after so many years. And on a positive note, we will be able to say that we came out of this with positive energy, and we crossed the T's, and we dotted the I's, and we, as a people, did our research, and we had each other's backs, and we did everything that we could to be supportive of each other as we navigated through the coronavirus, which obviously has affected melanated people in this country more than any other group of people. So I see my brothers and sisters riding through LA with the mask on, in the car with the windows up, with the AC on. Hopefully you're playing some good music.
Yes. And want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Want to thank Morris Media, Poetess, Sheena. We love y'all. Brothers, good to be back with you. And hey, let's do it again.
One more shout out from me to Sheena Lester and the legendary Poetess. As always, we call this Melanated Politics because melanated obviously is the essence of color, and politics is defined as war without bloodshed. We will always let our tongue be our gun and our wisdom be our ammunition. Peace. We're out.